I was standing in the kitchen when it happened. The afternoon sun poured gently through the window, painting gold across the tiles. I had just finished preparing my son's favorite dish, chicken stew with ginger and garlic, the way he loved it since he was 10. Cooking for him always made me feel connected, even though he visited less and less these days. As I sprinkled the last bit of coriander on top, my phone buzzed on the counter. I wiped my hands and picked it up with a smile, hoping it was him telling me he was coming over to eat. Instead, the screen showed a short text message, a sentence that looked harmless at first glance until I actually read it. "No cruise for you, mom, family only." The world fell silent. My hands trembled slightly as I stared at the glowing words, as if they might change if I blinked hard enough. Family only. Had I not been the one who held this family together through scraped knees, broken hearts, school fees, late-night fevers, endless sacrifices? Had I not carried family on my back for decades? Maybe it was a joke. My son loved teasing, but even a bad joke had warmth. This text felt cold like a locked door. I typed back slowly, carefully. I thought I was family. I waited. 3 dots appeared, typing, not typing. Then, finally, his reply arrived. "It's complicated. Just this time. Please don't make it difficult." The pot on the stove simmered softly, but something inside me boiled harder. Difficult was my existence. Difficult. My eyes burned, but I refused to let tears fall. I sat down at the small wooden table, the same one where he once colored drawings and practiced spelling, and felt like the walls were leaning closer around me. When did I become inconvenient? The rest of the day moved in slow motion. I walked from room to room, touching memories, the framed photo of his graduation, his childhood soccer trophy, the tiny ceramic penguin he gave me for Mother's Day when he was 11. All of it whispered, "You belong. So why are you being pushed away?" That evening, I tried calling him. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer, not even a callback. I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching the phone like a lifeline that kept slipping through my fingers. Outside, laughter from neighbor children echoed through the street. Inside, the house felt too large for one heart. Family only. The words repeated in my head like a cruel melody. If motherhood had taught me anything, it was patience, but patience isn't the same as silence. I wasn't angry yet. I was hurt, confused, and more lonely than I had ever felt. I wished he could see my face, hear the tremble in my voice, feel how heavy that message was. But that night, something inside me shifted. A small spark flickered, something between pride and pain. I realized that if they wanted a family without me, they might just get the shock of their lives. And that was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to a house that sounded louder in its silence than ever before. The clock ticked, the fridge hummed, and outside a motorcycle passed by, but none of it drowned out the quiet in my chest. I reached for my phone before even putting on my slippers, hoping, no, praying for a message from my son, an apology, a voice note, anything, but there was nothing. I scrolled our chat history, photos, memories, emojis, and long conversations from months ago. Of it suddenly felt like a documentary of a past life. It was as if I were looking at someone else's son, someone else's family. I tried calling again, ring after ring, and then voicemail. My stomach twisted. I imagined him smiling somewhere, planning the trip, laughing with his wife. Did they even mention me? Did he defend me? Did she? Or did my absence make things easier for them? At noon, I decided to put on a brave face and keep moving. I went to the grocery store, pretending everything was normal. I picked up milk, bread, spices, but my mind was somewhere else. The cashier greeted me cheerfully, planning something special. "You look thoughtful today." I forced a smile and lied, "Just cooking for family." The word stung on my tongue. Back home, I stood in the living room and looked around. My home felt like a museum, quiet, organized, full of memories but empty of presence. I walked to the closet and found a box of old photos. My son's first birthday cake smeared across his cheeks, his kindergarten graduation, the day he moved to his first apartment. I ran my fingertips across the photos, feeling warmth and ache at the same time. I whispered to myself, "Where did I lose you?" I texted him again. "I won't make it difficult. Can we talk?" 1 check mark. Not even delivered. They were probably too busy booking cabins, buying matching shirts, planning group photos where I didn't exist. Hours crawled. Evening came. I sat by the window with a cup of tea that went cold faster than I could drink it. My neighbor, Mrs. Karim, waved from her porch. "Everything all right?" she called softly. Part of me wanted to scream, "No." Everything is not all right. My own son pushed me out, but I nodded politely instead. Night approached, and loneliness crept in like fog. I lay in bed staring at the dark ceiling, the words family only blinking behind my eyelids like a neon sign. But pain has a strange way of sharpening the mind. The longer I stared at the ceiling, the clearer something became. If they didn't see my worth, then maybe it was time they felt my absence, not in silence, but in a way they'd never forget. Somewhere inside me, a plan flickered, small, but alive. This story was far from over. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional family stories and dramatic twists. The next morning began like the last, quiet, heavy, and full of unanswered questions. But something inside me felt different. I no longer stared at my phone waiting to be acknowledged. Instead, I stared at the suitcase sitting on the top shelf of my wardrobe, covered in a thin blanket of dust. It looked almost offended by its long neglect. I pulled it down and ran my hand across the surface. The zipper was cold. It seemed to whisper, "You remember how to travel too, don't you?" A strange calmness washed over me. If my son and his wife thought they could exclude me just because it was convenient, then maybe they needed a little reminder of the roots they so casually tried to chop. Maybe they needed to understand that motherhood doesn't have an off switch, and neither does dignity. But this wasn't about anger. It was about clarity. I made myself tea and sat by the window, notebook in hand. For the first time in weeks, my mind felt awake. Where could I go instead? Somewhere I had always talked about but never dared to visit alone. My heart beat faster with each idea. Historical cities, scenic mountains, peaceful coastlines where no one would ask if I belonged. I scribbled names, checked dates, and searched flights. I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. A quiet message that said, "My life doesn't pause when you turn your back." But there was more. I wasn't the only one who had been gently pushed aside by my son's wife's subtle, polished words. Last Eid, she forgot to seat me at the table. Last winter, I wasn't invited to their celebration because the apartment was too small. Tiny cuts, one after another. Now this cruise was the grand finale. I could feel the echo of hurt from others, to my sister, my cousin, even my son's own aunt, whom his wife claimed was too dramatic to invite anywhere. So I called them. One by one, I heard sighs of recognition. "She did that to you too. You're not the only one." Relief flooded through my veins. It wasn't personal, it was a pattern of quiet exclusion wrapped in politeness. By noon, my living room sounded alive again. Phone calls buzzed, laughter crackled, old stories resurfaced, ideas bounced around like confetti, and slowly, a plan took shape, not to crash the cruise. No, something smarter, something dignified, something unforgettable. We decided on a parallel trip, a reunion without them, photos full of smiles, memories layered with joy, videos of laughter echoing across oceans, and we would post them publicly, not maliciously, but proudly. A reminder that family doesn't shrink because one person narrows the guest list. As evening fell, I packed my suitcase with a softness I hadn't felt in years. Each folded shirt was a promise. Each zipped pouch, a boundary. My home no longer felt suffocating. I wasn't disappearing. I was emerging. For the first time in a very long time, I felt like I belonged to myself. Over the next few days, my house transformed from a quiet cocoon into a command center. The suitcase sat open on the couch, lists scattered across the coffee table. My phone buzzed like an overdue alarm clock. I wasn't alone anymore, not in thought, and definitely not in spirit. It started with a call from my sister, Farah. She sighed so deeply I could almost see her shaking her head. "She did the same to me last summer," she whispered. "Told me the dinner was just for the younger generation. Since when did love have an expiration date?" Then came my cousin Huma, who wasn't invited to their anniversary dinner because she was too opinionated, and Auntie Noor, gentle, harmless Noreen, was told she asked too many questions. Each story fit together like puzzle pieces, painting a very clear picture. My daughter-in-law wasn't pushing just me away. She was trimming the family tree, branch by branch, until it stood bare enough to control, and nobody noticed until someone finally said, "No." Suddenly, everyone wanted in on something bigger. "Let's go somewhere nicer than a cruise," Farah said. "Somewhere she can't gatekeep." Laughter bubbled through the speaker as if sunlight had cracked through a storm. We weren't planning a counterattack. We were planning a celebration of the people who refused to be erased. We settled on a wellness resort tucked against turquoise waves, known for its calm beaches, cultural tours, and evening dance gatherings, a place that smelled of salt and dumplings and warm jasmine tea, a place for stories and second chances. We booked 6 rooms, 6, as each confirmation email arrived. Excitement buzzed like electricity under my skin. It was liberating, not because we were excluding anyone but because we were choosing joy instead of begging for scraps of inclusion. In the evenings, we held video calls to finalize details. My cousins argued lovingly about outfits. My sister tried to teach us a group dance she found online. Auntie Noreen kept forgetting to unmute herself. My living room echoed with laughter until midnight. For the first time in ages, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life. Meanwhile, my son didn't reach out, not once. His silence wasn't a wall, it was a mirror. Maybe I avoided it too long. Maybe I let his wife make decisions for him. Maybe love blinded me more than I thought. But every time doubt whispered in my ear, another message would ping on my phone. I'm so glad we're doing this. You deserve this. We miss you. And I realized I wasn't proving anything to them. I was proving something to myself. The night before departure, I sat on my suitcase to zip it shut. I looked around the room, not searching for permission, just appreciating the version of myself about to board that plane. Not fragile, not forgotten, found. Tomorrow, the real journey would begin. Enjoying the story? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional family dramas and jaw-dropping twists. The morning of our departure arrived like a secret blooming quietly in the dark. I woke before the sun, the house still wrapped in silence. For a moment, I sat at the edge of my bed and just breathed. This was it. No backing out, no shrinking, no asking for permission. I made tea slowly, savoring every movement, the lift of the kettle, the swirl of steam, the soft clink of porcelain. I wasn't rushing away from home. I was walking toward something I should have embraced long ago, my own life. Before leaving, I walked through each room, touching memories gently. The faded photo on the bookshelf of me holding my baby boy after his first fever. The tiny dent on the dining table where he slammed his toy plane too hard. The handprint painted canvas from primary school still hanging slightly crooked. These pieces of him were mosaics of love, but they were also reminders of how easy it was to lose yourself in raising someone who eventually forgets your edges. At 9 a.m., a taxi pulled up. I wheeled my suitcase to the door and paused, glancing back once, not too long for the past, but to honor it. Then I stepped out and locked the door behind me, feeling a strange mix of freedom and gravity. The airport buzzed with travelers and accents and the smell of coffee, brewed too strong. My sister waved wildly from across the terminal, her scarf bright and ridiculous and perfect. Beside her stood my cousins and Auntie Noreen, who somehow managed to pack 3 suitcases despite our protests. We hugged like family instead of footnotes. As we checked in, something curious happened. A message popped on my phone from my daughter-in-law. We're leaving soon. Hope you'll be fine. Don't make this dramatic. I stared at the words. They didn't hurt, not anymore. Instead, I smiled. I don't need to make this dramatic, I thought. Reality will handle that for me. The flight was smooth, and the resort greeted us with warm towels, coconut drinks, and music drifting through open windows. Our rooms overlooked water so blue it looked painted. That first night, we sat on the beach under lantern light, waves applauding gently against the shore. We took photos, individual, group, candid, laughing. We posted them, not tagged out of spite, but to share our joy. But in an hour, my phone buzzed relentlessly. My son, where are you? My daughter-in-law is this now. A cousin on their side. Why weren't we told? The messages piled like dominoes. I simply replied, on a family vacation, no explanation, no apologies. The next day, we booked a boat tour, danced under sunset colors, and tried local desserts that melted like sugar clouds. Every moment felt earned, tasted, lived. That night, on my balcony, I watched the moon smear silver across the sea. For years, I waited to be included, invited, acknowledged, but now, I finally realized something simple and powerful. I don't need permission to belong. And soon, they would learn that too. Back home, the day their cruise finally began, my phone buzzed non-stop before breakfast. Missed calls, messages, photos of my son wheeling luggage, smiling proudly, a family selfie at the port, everyone grinning wide, except my daughter-in-law, whose eyes sharpened at the edges like someone waiting to win. The caption under the photo read, "Family only." I sipped my mango juice and studied that picture with an unexpected softness. Not jealousy, not anger, just observation. They looked happy. Good. Happiness was never something I wanted to snatch out of anyone's hand, but the comments under that post told a different story. Where's your mother? Is she okay? It doesn't look like a family without her. Aren't you ashamed? Within minutes, more notifications swarmed. Likes, shares, curious messages. The tide was turning in not because I pushed it, but because truth has buoyancy. Meanwhile, our breakfast table was loud with clinking forks and bubbling laughter. My sister reenacted a waiter's dramatic bow. My cousins teased each other about sunscreen streaks, and Auntie Noreen managed to spill tea on her own hat. We took more pictures, smiling wide, arms linked, sunglasses reflecting the ocean like a promise. I posted one more photo, me on the beach, breezy dress dancing in the wind, captioned, surrounded by family. No mention of anyone, no pointed fingers, but silence can scream, and peace can be weaponized without lifting a blade. 2 hours later, as we packed for a cultural tour, my phone buzzed again. My son, Mom, where are you? Why didn't you tell us? I stared at his words, feeling something strange like grief thinning into clarity. For years, I waited for him to notice, without needing to be loud. But children raised on plates of unconditional love sometimes forget their parents have appetites too. I typed slowly. You didn't ask. His reply came fast, frantic. We thought you'd just stay home. There it was. The assumption, the shrinking, the invisible permission slip I never signed. My daughter-in-law chimed in. We didn't think you'd go somewhere alone. Alone. I looked around at the chattering table. At Love So Real It Vibrated. I smiled. We left our phones behind and joined the cultural tour. A walk through old stone alleys, fragrant temples, artistry woven in markets like songs. We danced with strangers, tried honey-sweet pastries, bought bracelets stamped with the resort's emblem. Every moment felt like stitching pieces of myself back together. That night, while watching fire dancers twist sparks into constellations, I realized something crucial. I didn't come here to make them regret excluding me. I came to stop shrinking around people who measured me small. Later, on my balcony, my son tried calling again, 3 times. I didn't answer, not out of cruelty, but because sometimes silence is the only sentence that gets read. The ocean roared below like applause. Tomorrow, the consequences of that silence would begin, and not just for them enjoying the story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional family dramas, shocking twists, and powerful endings. By the 4th day at the resort, something interesting happened. Our photos, quiet, sincere, joy-filled, had somehow traveled farther than expected. A cousin of my daughter-in-law commented publicly, "So this is where everyone disappeared to." Then another relative wrote, "Why wasn't I invited to their cruise?" The thread exploded. Dozens chimed in, screenshots spread, and like a crack in a dam, everything finally spilled out. The subtle uninvitations, the excuses, the shrinking guest list. People began realizing that my exclusion wasn't an accident, it was a pattern. Meanwhile, on the cruise ship, my son was panicking. That evening, while we sat in the resort lounge laughing at a magician who accidentally set a napkin on fire, my phone rang again. This time, a video call. I hesitated, then I answered. His face appeared first, pale, worried, and framed by neon lights. Behind him, his in-laws stared awkwardly, whispering. Then she appeared, my daughter-in-law, with a smile so tight it looked glued. "Mom," my son breathed. "Why didn't you tell me you were traveling?" I tilted the camera slightly to show the live music, the sea behind us, the joyful chaos of my cousins dancing wildly. "You said it was family only," I answered softly. His face fell. He wasn't angry. He looked ashamed. My daughter-in-law's tone sharpened. "We didn't mean you weren't family. It was just complicated." The ship cabin. I cut her off gently. "Do you hear yourself? There's always an excuse, a reason, a justification." But somehow I leaned closer. "The excuses only ever push my branch off this tree." Her lips parted, searching for words, then closing again. I continued, voice calm, not bitter, just honest. "Love doesn't come with entry tickets. Family doesn't require invitations. And respect." I paused, letting the music swell behind me. "Respect isn't selective." His mother-in-law stepped forward awkwardly into the frame. "We assumed she would be uncomfortable." "No," I said, straightening. "You assumed I'd accept whatever scraps you handed me." My son swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "Mom, I'm sorry. The apology cracked on his tongue, like something he'd never practiced. Behind the camera, a waiter brought our group another tray of desserts. Everyone cheered. Laughter swelled. Joy didn't pause for confrontation. And something inside my son shifted when he saw it, that I wasn't miserable, waiting, begging. I was living. I was wrong, he whispered. I should have fought for you. His wife's composure finally shattered. We didn't think you'd actually go. But I did, I answered, smiling softly, because I got tired of waiting for permission to exist. Silence. A heavy, undeniable silence. We come back in 3 days, my son said. Can we talk then, please? I nodded. Not as mother and child in a hierarchy, but as two adults rebuilding something equal. He nodded too, relieved. I ended the call not abruptly, just gracefully, then set the phone down. My sister squeezed my hand. Proud of you, she whispered. Outside, waves crashed like applause, and for the first time in years, I felt heard. 3 days later, I returned home, sun-kissed, lighter and quieter on the inside. My suitcase rolled across the familiar tiles of my living room. But something had shifted. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt mine. I made tea and sat by the window, watching sparrows hop across the balcony railing. The quiet was no longer heavy. It was peaceful. I scrolled through our trip photos, our laughter, our wind-blown hair, our terrible dance poses. Each picture was a stitch closing a wound I didn't know was still bleeding. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. My son stood there, shoulders slumped, his face tired like someone who had been running from truth but finally stopped. Behind him, his wife lingered, her eyes darting nervously. Mom, he whispered. I stepped aside to let them in. We sat around the same dining table that had carried decades of meals and memories. He ran his fingers along a small dent on the wood, the one he left as a child, and I watched him silently rediscover the roots he had stepped away from. Didn't realize how much you've been hurting, he said. I thought you'd always wait. You'd always be here. There it was, the confession many children grow into without meaning harm. I looked at him gently. Love doesn't mean waiting in the dark. It doesn't mean shrinking so others feel taller. He nodded, tears pooling. I forgot that you're a person too. His wife cleared her throat softly. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel unwelcome, she said, choosing her words carefully. I didn't grow up with close family. I get overwhelmed, so I tried to control everything. I didn't realize I was pushing people out. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. That it not hold out revenge. I offered boundaries. I don't need invitations, I said. I need respect. I need to be seen. And when decisions are made, I should be included. Not because I'm your mother, but because I'm family. My daughter-in-law's voice cracked. We'll do better. We talked for an hour about history, about wounds, about the parts of love that require clarity, not silence. My son promised to step forward more, speak up more, and notice more. He apologized again, not quickly, but deeply. Before leaving, he hugged me tight. The kind of hug that squeezes years into seconds. Your trip looked amazing, he murmured into my shoulder. I smiled. It was because I chose not to wait. When the door closed behind them, I stood there, hands warm, heart steady. My life didn't hinge on their approval anymore. I had tasted freedom, friendship, laughter, the type that doesn't ask for permission. Families fracture quietly. They also heal quietly through boundaries, honesty, and brave choices. As I brewed another cup of tea, the future felt vast and possible. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of losing myself, and now, I was found. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more viral emotional stories, dramatic twists, and powerful life lessons.